Hi, this is the physiology series, and I'll be talking about respiratory physiology. And this will be a basic lecture in which I will talk to you about the organization of the respiratory system, the required anatomy, which is very essential for understanding the basic physiology and the basic functions of the respiratory system. In which, after that, we will talk about them in the next lectures. But yes, this is the basic lecture which you all should definitely see. So, if we talk about the organization of respiratory system, then it is divided into three parts: the upper airway, the conducting airway, and the alveolar airway. Now, see, the upper airway starts from the external nostrils up to the start of the trachea, and if you see, the conducting airway starts from the trachea up till the terminal bronchioles. Now, if we talk about the alveolar airway, then the alveolar airway starts from the respiratory bronchioles till the alveolar sacs. It goes on. The respiratory bronchioles divide into the alveolar ducts, and the alveolar ducts become alveolar sac. Similarly, if we talk about the conducting airway, the trachea, they divide into two bronchi, and the bronchi simultaneously divide into bronchioles, and the bronchioles further divide to terminal bronchioles. So, what is the function? See, the upper airway is involved in the humidification of the air. Now, if you will ask me, then why is humid air required? See, we have to maintain a normal body temperature. We just can't take in dry air. We have, what is the humidification by mean is that we have to add some water vapor, and some amount of mist should be there, because some amount of humidity is required for the wide body. uh, if there is not if there is lot of dry environment, then the cells won't be able to survive. There will be lot of desiccation, or you can say a lot of vaporization of the water which is already present in our respiratory tract, because mucus water, this is the layer which forms the which this is what forms the superficial layer of the our respiratory cells. So if the air is so dry, then it will lead to the desiccation. Now, the upper airway is also involved in the filtration of dust particles, and you can say the pathogens, because our external nostrils have a lot of hairs, so they filter them out. If I talk about the conducting airway, so the name suggests that the conducting airway is involved in the conduction of the air. It is like a bridge between the upper airway and the alveolar airway, and it is involved in the conduction of the air from the upper airway to the alveolar airway. Now, what is the alveolar airway? It is involved in the exchange of gases O2 and CO2. So basically, it helps in that. Now, the conducting airway does conduct the air, but there are some things I have to talk about it in detail. Now, you see this beautiful diagram which has been taken from the Ganong book, 26th edition. So you see that this is the basic histology which goes on. This involves the trachea and bronchus and bronchioles, which we are seeing here. These two which are I have demarcated here, these two involve our conducting zone. But if we talk about this, then this is the alveolar airway. Alveolar alveolar airway. Now, what happens is that uh, basically in the upper airway there are pseudo stratified ciliated epithelium cells, and they secrete mucus. There is submucosa also. As we get to the trachea and bronchus, then there are two parts or two types of histology which is seen. In the trachea and bronchus, we see pseudo stratified. You see, there is pseudo stratification. Some cells are large, some cells are small, so it kind of looks like stratified, but is actually not stratified. And there is a layer of thick mucus which is secreted by these submucosal glands, and also there is a layer of smooth muscles, and what we see is a layer of fibrocartilaginous layer. So basically, there is a layer of, this is the basic histology, and the cartilaginous layer, it is what you can say gives it a kind of elasticity to the bronchus, to the trachea and bronchus. So that is required, because these structures have to be tough. And the smooth muscle, it kind of provides that bronchoconstriction, so that we can control the amount of air which is going in and out of our body. Generally in asthma it is bronchoconstrictive. Now we talk about the bronchioles. So basically, this part of the, you can say, the conducting airways is more involved in the conduction, and that is why you must be seeing that there is not that mucotic layer, and the stratification has been reduced, and it has become a ciliated cuboidal epithelium. You see these cuboidal cells. uh, if I remove this, then you will be able to see these cuboidal cells, ciliated cuboidal cells. and that is what helps in the, basically you can say that these all the cilia I have been talking about, they are involved in the mucociliary function in which they clear the mucus upwards, they take it upwards, it escalates them upward, and that is the mucus we expel out or we cough it out. So that is required. And you see there are no submucosal glands, there are some smooth muscles, and there is no cartilaginous layer also, which kind of reduces the elasticity, or you can say uh, actually what happens is that the function of the cartilage is that whatever stretches this trachea or bronchus, it is able to regain its shape once again. That is what is the function of cartilage. But here in the bronchioles, it has the power to expand more, because what happens is that when the air reaches there, there is a lot of division, and that too when a lot of air is reaching, because of the increased surface area, we want the expansion to be more, because if there is kind of, you can say that if it expands and again regains its shape, then it will be difficult, it won't be able to accumulate more and more air, and that is what we want. So that is why we are seeing the loss of the cartilaginous layer. Everything is logical. So in the alveolar airway, the alveolar airway is mostly involved in the gaseous exchange, but we'll talk about it in this video later. Now I wanted to say one more thing, that in this layer, if I talk about the bronchioles of the conducting airway, so there are non-ciliated cuboidal epithelium, a type of non-ciliated cuboidal epithelium, which are called club cells or Clara cells. Clara cells. Now, what happens is that up to, you can say, in the bronchioles or the terminal bronchioles region, we see these cells in abundance. And as the name suggests, they are shaped like a club. Club is was an instrument used by the early humans, which had a very broad, which was broader at the top and narrow at the bottom, and it was used to hit and kill animals. So basically, this club is what on this instrument club is what they have named the cells club cells, and that is how it looks too. You see, they are broader upwards but narrower at the down. So what is the function of these club cells? They actually secrete defensins. Defensins are molecules which helps in regulating the immunity. They wait, you can say they prevent pathogens from invading our respiratory epithelium. And it also has, the club cells have also the power of producing, or you can say the regenerating the epithelium. In case if any damage occurs, these cells act as progenitor cells, which can form new cells and provide the epithelium, respiratory epithelium, with new cells. So this was about the conducting airway. I told you about the mucociliary clearance mechanism which they have. Actually what happens is that the cilia acts like an escalator, and it starts pushing the mucus and all the particles, dust particles which have reached there, to the you can say upwards, and we just cough it out. And if I talk about the alveolar airway, yes, the alveolar airway, just like I told you, that it is mostly involved in the exchange of gases, the exchange of O2 and CO2. Now if I talk about the alveoli, so basically if you see this diagram, it is a respiratory membrane, and it is composed of two type of cells. There is a type 1 epithelium and type 2, you can say type 1 pneumocyte or type 2 pneumocyte. Now the type 1 pneumocyte, it is flattened, it is mostly involved in gaseous exchange, and the flattening is required because, see, the more the thickness of the epithelium, more the oxygen or the CO2 will have to cross this thick layer, and as you know that thickness also decides the rate of diffusion. So that is a very big problem. And now these type 1 cells are mainly involved and are more in abundance in the alveolar epithelium. And if we talk about the type 2 cells, the type 2 cells or the type 2 pneumocytes are kind of interesting. Why are they interesting? Because they produce surfactant. Now you see here the LB, what is written here? These are the lamellar bodies which are produced by the endoplasmic reticulum. These lamellar bodies become, you can say these lamellar bodies are a concentration of proteins and phospholipids. And then these lamellar bodies, when they mature and acquire even more proteins and phospholipids, they become tubular myelin. And this tubular myelin is what forms a mesh. You can say a network, a lattice, which replaces you can see this phospholipid layer, which is running from here to here. Yes, this phospholipid layer, this is replaced. So basically what happens is that this phospholipid layer is required for maintaining the surface tension. I will talk more about surface tension in my next video, but from now you can understand that this surface tension is required and prevents the, you can say, if this surface tension is decreased, mark my words, if the surface tension is decreased, it prevents the collapsing of alveoli. So So that is why we need a surfactant, and that is what they play the role. Now you can see that one more thing, that this surfactant which is produced, it is again digested by the alveolar macrophages, because too much surfactant is also very bad. If we produce a lot of surfactant, then it will fill up the alveoli, and that too can cause the collapse of alveoli. You see, there's a balance in everything. Surfactant is good, but if it even becomes more, then that also is a disorder. So in my pathology lectures I will talk to you about that. So basically what happens is that these alveolar macrophages digest those, you can say, the phospholipids. Basically the surfactant is made of lecithin, so they digest this phospholipid and lecithin and prevent the excess. The balance of synthesis and degradation is maintained. So that was the, you can say, the alveolar airway function. And also they have the power of, you can say, they can also act as a progenitor cell, these type 2 cells, because they can also give rise to both type 1 cells and type 2 cells. If some kind of damage occurs, they become activated. Now if I talk about the alveolar macrophages here, so basically what happens is that even particles whose size is less than 2.5 micrometer, they reach the alveoli, and the alveolar macrophages, they ingest these particles, or you can say any foreign substance or pathogen. If it reaches there, obviously it reaches there most of the times. So these alveolar macrophages have the power to secrete chemokines, which will attract the neutrophils and lymphocytes, which is responsible for, you can say, killing the pathogen or giving the appropriate immune response to the foreign body, which we see here. Now if I talk about the respiratory membrane, the layers of respiratory membrane, so there is the layer of surfactant, then there is the type 1 pneumocytes, or you can say the cell layer, and then this part is the basement membrane. You see, it is adjoined or continuous with the, you can say, the basement membrane of the capillaries. And here after the basement membrane, we see the endothelial cells, and here's the erythrocyte, which will take up the oxygen or will give the CO2. And here outside we see the type 1 cells, which are again lining one more alveoli. So basically the thickness is up till here, you can say up till here, yes, the till the endothelium. After that the RBCs are taking the oxygen and CO2. Now if I talk about the functions, the function of our respiratory system, the basic functions, basically what happens is that in our trachea and bronchi there are a lot of nerve fibers too, which have been not shown here, but I'm telling you. Now these nerve fibers, they sense stimuli, you can say, they can sense particles, they can say, sense dust, coal, tar, any kind of dust particle which are there. So if they sense it, then they produce a reflex. What happens is that actually these nerve cells send impulses to the curve center, which is present in our medulla, and this medulla then again sends signal to our respiratory muscles or the larynx muscle, which produces extreme pressure. I will talk about the cough reflex in more detail in my later videos, but basically understand this is that this cough expels all the dust particles, or you can say along with the mucus, so that our airways remain clean and clear. And also the diffusion of gases, I already talked about. The alveolar macrophages play a housekeeping function, as they clear and they ward off pathogens. They clear or ingest the dust particles and help us in cleaning the airway, though they also can be a menace, in which you will understand in the pathology lectures of this respiratory pathology. And the mucociliary clearance, like I told you, there is a speed actually, somewhere I think 16 millimeter per minute. Yes, the cilia, they move at, you can say that if they are moving at a speed of 60 millimeter per minute, that any particle, they can send it at a speed of 60 millimeter per minute upwards to our throat, so that we can cough and expel it. And that is the, you can say, the function of mucociliary clearance. And since the mucus and the cilia both are involved here, so it is called mucociliary clearance. Generally this is defective in cartilaginous syndrome, in which there is absence of cilia. Now if we talk about the acid base balance, so what happens is that they are also responsible for this. If in some patient, in a pathological patient, the kidney is failing, and he or she can't secrete acids. So if it is he or she can't, will be not be able to secrete acids, so what happens is that acid starts accumulating in their blood, and the blood become acidic. Now to counteract this acidity, what happens is that our, you can say, our lungs, I will talk in more detail about this, our lungs start respiring more, because the CO2 are the source of H plus ions, so it has to release more CO2. So that is how you see that the respiratory system is compensating for the acidosis created by our, you can say, the excretory system or the kidneys. And if I talk about the phonation and articulation, so this is also a very important function of the respiratory system. Phonation is the production of, you can say, that pitch or the amplitude of the voice which is required. So phonation is the production of the voice, and you can say the articulation is the formation of that sound or the voice into speech. Now phonation is done by the larynx, the, you can say, the contracting muscles which contract the larynx, and they, there's a lot of mechanism there which I will go into later. But what happens is that they result when they vibrate against one another. The larynx cords, you can say, the cords are like this, and this is the larynx hole, this is the orifice, and these cords is what they vibrate or flap against one another, and they produce a sound. And this sound, though it has to be words just like I'm talking to you, so to form them into a speech, there is the process of articulation in which the tongue, or you can say the nasopharynx, even the nasopharynx, yes, our our upper airways that terminates, you can say, the nasopharynx, and even some parts of the chest are involved. So that is the formation of our sound into speech. Now this was my basic lecture for respiratory system. I think this much is enough for you. After that we will proceed in the later topics, which I will talk in more detail about the diffusion of gases, also how it works, what is total capacity, and basically the acid base balance, also how it is altered, how does respiratory system compensate for it, and how is it bad also. And basically I will tell you the basic pathology through which you can do alterations, and you can extrapolate the abnormal, you can, or you can say, the pathology from that, from the physiology. Now I'm ending my lecture. Please like, share and subscribe if you like this video. And yes, there will be more coming. Till then, see you in the next video. Bye bye.